The curtain rises on a stage cluttered with the debris of your education. You've been walking through life with a head full of trivia that is, to put it mildly, absolute garbage. We aren't just talking about specialized knowledge here. We are talking about the foundational facts you drop at dinner parties to sound sophisticated. From the biology of your own tongue to the physics of the cosmos, you are living in a house of cards built on misunderstandings, mistranslations, and Hollywood special effects. Welcome to the deconstruction of your reality. It's going to be a bumpy, slightly humiliating ride. 1. The tongue map cartography disaster. Remember that colorful diagram in your 4th grade biology textbook? The one that neatly divided your tongue into sovereign territories, sweet on the tip, bitter at the back, sour on the sides? It is a complete fabrication born from a mistranslation. In 1901, a German scientist named D.P. Honig published a paper that was misinterpreted by a Harvard psychologist, and suddenly the tongue map became gospel. In reality, your tongue is an anarchy of flavor. Every taste bud in your mouth is capable of detecting every flavor profile simultaneously. There is no segregation in specific zones. Your mouth is a melting pot of sensory input. The perpetuation of this myth is a testament to how easily bad science becomes educational dogma. If you really want to test it, put a lemon slice on the sweet tip of your tongue and wait for the sugar rush that will never come. Your taste buds are team players, not territorial landlords. 2. The elastic legend of the shrinking stomach. Diet culture loves a good physiological lie, and the idea that your stomach physically shrinks when you eat less is the crown jewel of weight loss mythology. The narrative suggests that if you starve yourself effectively enough, your stomach will transform into a dainty, marble-sized pouch that rejects excess food. This is biological fan fiction. Your stomach is a muscular, elastic organ, not a pair of cheap jeans that shrink in the dryer. While your appetite hormones, ghrelin and leptin, might adjust to lower food intake, making you feel full faster, the physical capacity of the organ remains largely unchanged unless you undergo surgery. It distends to accommodate a Thanksgiving feast and contracts when empty, but its resting size is fairly constant. Believing your organ is shrinking is just a psychological coping mechanism for being hungry. You aren't reshaping your anatomy. You're just training your brain to stop screaming for pizza. 3. The werewolf delusion of shaving. There is a persistent belief that taking a razor to your body hair causes it to grow back thicker, darker, and faster, as if your follicles are vengeful spirits angered by the blade. This myth likely survives because it serves as a convenient deterrent for teenagers. However, shaving cuts the hair at the surface, leaving a blunt tip rather than the natural tapered point of unshaven hair. When that blunt tip begins to emerge, it feels coarse and looks darker against the skin, creating an illusion of thickness. It is a trick of the light and touch, not a biological mutation. If shaving genuinely caused hair to multiply and thicken, bald men everywhere would be furiously scrubbing their scalps with Gillette Mach 3s in a desperate bid for a mane. Science tells us that hair growth is determined by genetics and hormones, not by your morning grooming ritual. 4. The Knuckle-Cracking Arthritis Scare. Every child who has ever cracked their knuckles has been warned by a grimacing relative that they are on a fast track to arthritis. It is the kind of medical advice delivered with the certainty of a curse. Yet this is pure auditory pareidolia. We hear a nasty sound and assume it must be causing nasty damage. The pop you hear is actually cavitation, the rapid formation and collapse of gas bubbles in the synovial fluid lubricating your joints. Donald Unger, a dedicated doctor and possibly a madman, cracked the knuckles on his left hand for 60 years while leaving his right hand alone to prove this point. The result? No difference in arthritis between the two hands. He eventually won an IG Nobel Prize for his dedication to spiteful self-experimentation. So, crack away. The only thing you are actually damaging is the patience of the person sitting next to you. 5. The Sleepwalker's Dangerous Awakening. Cinema loves the trope of the sleepwalker, a zombie-like figure with arms outstretched, navigating rooftops. The accompanying rule is that waking them up causes a heart attack, a stroke, or instant insanity. This is a dramatic exaggeration that transforms a minor neurological glitch into a life-or-death scenario. Waking a sleepwalker won't kill them, though it might earn you a punch in the face. Sleepwalkers are in a state of deep, slow-wave sleep. Waking them abruptly results in sleep inertia, a profound state of confusion and disorientation. They aren't going to die of shock, but they will be terrified, confused, and potentially combative. The real danger lies in letting them wander into traffic or down a flight of stairs. Guiding them gently back to bed is the polite option, but shaking them awake is not tantamount to murder, despite what Victorian Gothic novels might imply. 6. The Hydro Obsession, 8 glasses a day. We have become a society obsessed with hydration, clutching our massive water bottles like security blankets. The mantra 8 glasses of 8 ounces a day is repeated by everyone from fitness gurus to worried mothers. Yet there is zero scientific backing for this specific number. It likely stems from a 1945 Food and Nutrition Board recommendation that people conveniently forgot included the phrase, "Most of this quantity is contained in prepared foods." You absorb massive amounts of water from fruits, vegetables, coffee, and, yes, even soda. Your body is an incredibly sophisticated machine with a built-in hydration alert system called thirst. Unless you are trekking through the Sahara or training for an Ironman, you likely do not need to force-feed yourself water until you feel like a sloshing waterbed. The only thing the 8x8 rule guarantees is a very intimate relationship with your bathroom. 7. The Myth of the Five Senses. Blame Aristotle for this one. We are taught from kindergarten that we perceive the world through sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. This reductive list ignores the complex machinery that actually keeps you alive and functioning. Neurologists estimate humans have anywhere from 9 to over 20 distinct senses, depending on how you classify them. Consider proprioception, the sense that lets you touch your nose with your eyes closed. Consider equilibrioception, which keeps you from falling over every time you stand up. We have thermoception for temperature and nociception for pain. If you truly only had 5 senses, you would be a stumbling, burning, disoriented mess, unable to tell if you were upright or upside down. Your body is a symphony of sensory input. Giving credit only to the big 5 is like praising the lead singer and ignoring the entire orchestra. 8. The Thermodynamics of Headwear. Put on a hat or you'll catch a cold. You lose 80% of your body heat through your head. This statistical lie is a staple of winter parenting. It stems from a vague interpretation of a U.S. military survival manual from the 1950s, where volunteers were exposed to freezing temperatures in survival suits, but without hats. Naturally, they lost heat through the only exposed part of their bodies. In reality, your head is just skin and bone like the rest of you. It accounts for about 10% of your body's surface area, and you lose heat from it proportionally. If you went outside in freezing weather wearing only a hat and no pants, you would quickly discover that your legs are perfectly capable of losing heat, too. The head isn't a chimney for your soul's warmth. It's just another extremity. Wear a hat because your ears get cold, not because your head is a thermal exhaust port. 9. The Cardiac Sneeze Pause. There is a charmingly morbid belief that every time you sneeze, your heart stops beating for a microsecond. Hence the phrase, "God bless you," intended to welcome you back from the dead. It provides a dramatic flair to allergy season, but physiologically it is nonsense. Your heart does not stop. It just gets momentarily confused by the sudden pressure change in your chest. When you sneeze, the intrathoracic pressure spikes, which can decrease blood flow back to the heart. The heart might compensate by changing its rhythm for a beat or skipping a beat effectively, but the electrical activity never ceases. You aren't flatlining in the middle of a meeting. You are just expelling mucus at 100 miles per hour while your heart hiccups. You are safe from the Reaper, though not from social awkwardness. 10. The Lemming Suicide Cult. Of all the animal myths, this one is the darkest. The idea that lemmings mindlessly follow each other off cliffs in a mass suicidal migration is a metaphor for conformity that politicians love to use. The tragedy is that this behavior was largely staged by filmmakers. The 1958 Disney documentary, White Wilderness, is the primary culprit in framing these rodents as a death cult. The filmmakers, needing dramatic footage, imported lemmings to a location in Alberta, which is landlocked, by the way, and physically pushed them off a riverbank to simulate a migration to the sea. In reality, lemmings do migrate when populations explode, and they can swim, but they don't have a collective death wish. The only lemming behavior here is the human audience blindly believing a documentary without checking the facts. Disney, dream makers, and apparently rodent murderers. 11. The ostrich's cowardly head. The image of an ostrich burying its head in the sand to ignore approaching danger is a staple of cartoons and corporate idioms. It paints the bird as the ultimate symbol of denial. However, if an ostrich actually buried its head in the sand, it would asphyxiate in short order. This is an animal that can run 45 miles per hour and kill a lion with a single kick. It doesn't need to hide. The myth likely comes from the ostrich's defensive behavior of lying low parallel to the ground to blend in with the savanna, or perhaps from them turning their eggs in underground nests. From a distance, their small heads vanish against the earth. But make no mistake, if you corner an ostrich, it won't hide. It will disembowel you. It is a dinosaur with feathers, not a nervous accountant avoiding tax audits. 12. The Matadors, Red Cape Deception. Bullfighting relies on the theatrics of the muleta, the red cape waved arrogantly by the matador. We assume the color red drives the bull into a blind rage. In reality, bulls are dichromats. They are effectively red-green colorblind. To a bull, that vibrant red cape looks like a dull, yellowish-gray sheet. The color is purely for the human audience. It hides the blood and looks dramatic from the cheap seats. What actually provokes the bull is the movement. The aggressive whipping of the fabric constitutes a threat display in the animal kingdom. You could wave a neon pink tablecloth or a garbage bag, and the bull would charge just as furiously if you waved it with enough arrogance. The bull isn't an art critic offended by your color palette. He is a 2,000-pound animal annoyed that you are teasing him. 13. The Goldfish Memory Wipe. We comfort ourselves about keeping goldfish in tiny, depressing bowls by claiming they have a 3-second memory. It's a Newcastle every lap, we joke. This is simply a lie we tell to assuage guilt over animal cruelty. Scientific studies have shown that goldfish can remember things for months, recognize different people, and even be trained to navigate mazes and push levers for food. In some experiments, fish learned to associate sounds with feeding times and remembered the connection weeks later. By treating them as lobotomized decorations, we are underestimating a creature that is acutely aware of the fact that it has been trapped in a glass prison with a ceramic diver for the last 3 years. Your goldfish remembers what you did, and it judges you. 14. The blindness of the bat. Blind as a bat is one of the most unfair idioms in the English language. It suggests a creature stumbling through the dark, helpless without its sonar. While it is true that bats use echolocation to hunt precision targets in pitch blackness, they are not blind. In fact, large fruit bats, flying foxes, have excellent vision, arguably better than yours in low-light conditions. Even the smaller microbats, famous for their sonar, use their eyes for orientation and navigation over long distances. Echolocation is their close-quarters combat system, but their eyes are their travel system. If bats could understand our idioms, they would find our assumption of their disability deeply offensive. They see you perfectly fine, they just don't care about you unless you're a mosquito or a fig. 15. The spider swallowing statistic. We have all heard the horror story. The average human swallows 8 spiders a year in their sleep. It is a factoid designed to ensure you never sleep peacefully again. Fortunately, it is a complete fabrication, brewed up by internet columnists in the 1990s to prove how easily fake facts spread online. Mission accomplished: humanity. Spiders have no interest in the warm, moist, windy cavern of your mouth. Vibrations from your breathing and heartbeat signal danger to a spider, terrifying them. For a spider to crawl into your mouth, it would have to override every survival instinct it possesses to embark on a suicide mission. Unless you are coating your tongue in dead flies before bed, you are safe. The spiders are more likely watching you from the corner, wondering why you make so much noise. 16. The penguin divorce reality. Pop culture has elevated the penguin to the status of a monogamous saint, the ultimate symbol of romantic loyalty. We watch March of the Penguins and weep at their devotion. While many penguins do bond for a season, the concept of mating for life is a human projection. In reality, penguins are pragmatic serial monogamists. If a partner doesn't show up on time, or if the breeding season fails, they move on. Emperor penguins specifically have a divorce rate of about 85% from year to year. They essentially find a new partner for every breeding season. It isn't a tragic romance, it is a business transaction designed to maximize offspring survival. If you are looking for relationship advice from flightless birds, you are going to end up disappointed and alone on an ice shelf. The chameleon's Technicolor coat. Cartoons have convinced us that chameleons are nature's ninjas, instantly shifting their skin to match a checkerboard or a plaid shirt to hide from predators. In reality, a chameleon's color change is driven by mood, temperature, and light, not a desire for camouflage. It is a communication device, a mood ring made of scales. Darker colors can help them absorb heat, while bright colors are often used to signal aggression to rivals or interest to mates. A chameleon turning bright red isn't trying to hide in a tomato patch. It is effectively screaming, "Look at me, I am angry and handsome." They are emotional exhibitionists, not stealth agents. We just misunderstood the language. 18. The wolf and the moon. The silhouette of a wolf howling at a full moon is the quintessential image of the wild. It is gothic, romantic, and biologically meaningless. Wolves are nocturnal, active predators, so they are awake when the moon is out, but they do not howl at it. They howl to communicate with their pack, to rally the troops, or to warn off strangers. The connection to the moon is purely coincidental. The moon just happens to provide the lighting for their nightly chorus. Furthermore, they tilt their heads back, not for dramatic effect, but to project the sound further. We humans, with our penchant for mysticism, turned a conference call into a lunar worship ritual. The wolf doesn't care about the satellite. It cares about where the rest of the gang is hiding. 19. The camel's liquid hump. Within the biology of the desert, the camel is king, and its hump is legendary. We are told as children that the hump is filled with water, a mobile storage tank for long treks. If you sliced open a camel's hump, please don't, you wouldn't find a reservoir of water, you would find a massive mound of gelatinous fat. The hump is a centralized food reserve. By concentrating fat in one place, the camel keeps the rest of its body largely free of insulating fat, allowing heat to escape more easily in the scorching sun. When the camel metabolizes this fat, it does produce water as a byproduct, but the primary function is energy storage. The camel is basically carrying a backpack of lard, not a canteen. 20. The Operatic Viking Helmet. If you picture a Viking, you picture a burly man with a braided beard and a helmet adorned with massive horns. This image is etched into our collective consciousness, but it is historically bankrupt. No archaeologist has ever found a Viking helmet with horns. In close-quarters combat, typically a shield wall, wearing handles on your head that the enemy could grab to snap your neck would be suicidal stupidity. The horned helmet image comes from 19th century costume designer Karl Emil Doppler, created for a production of Wagner's Der Ring des Nibelungen. The opera needed the villains to look primal and demonic, so he gave them horns. History was rewritten by a theater prop department. The real Vikings were terrifying enough without needing cosplay accessories. 21. The Napoleonic Short Joke. Napoleon Bonaparte is the poster child for short man syndrome, a psychological complex named entirely after a lie. At the time of his death, Napoleon measured 5 feet 2 inches in French units, which translates to about 5 feet 7 inches in modern measurements. This was actually slightly above average for a Frenchman of the early 19th century. The myth of his tiny stature was British wartime propaganda. Caricaturists like James Gilray depicted him as Little Boney, a tiny, tantrums-throwing child, to diminish his terrifying reputation. The British persisted in using their own measurement system to interpret French records, effectively shrinking him in the history books. He wasn't short. His enemies were just excellent trolls. 22. Einstein's mathematical failure. We love the underdog story of the genius who flunked school. Einstein failed math, cries the student struggling with algebra, hoping for a similar redemption arc. It is a comforting thought, but it is false. Einstein was a child prodigy. By age 12, he was mastering differential and integral calculus. He didn't fail math. He was bored by the rigid, militaristic teaching style of his German school. The rumor likely originated when a biographer confused the grading system of the Swiss school Einstein attended, where 6 was the highest grade, with the German system, where 1 was the highest. Einstein scored a 6. He was always brilliant. He was just a terrible employee who hated authority. Your C in trigonometry does not make you a hidden physicist. 23. The Medieval Flat Earth Society. We tend to look back at our ancestors with a smug superiority, assuming medieval Europeans all believed the world was as flat as a pancake, and that sailing too far meant falling off the edge. This is a Victorian myth invented to make the modern era look more enlightened. Educated people in the Middle Ages, and certainly the ancient Greeks before them, knew perfectly well the Earth was a sphere. Scholars like Bede and Dante Alighieri wrote about the spherical Earth. Monarchs held orbs to represent their earthly power. The conflict Columbus faced wasn't about the shape of the Earth. It was about its size. Columbus underestimated the planet's circumference, thinking he could reach Asia quickly. His critics were right. The ocean was too big. He just got lucky, or unlucky for the locals, that there was a massive continent in the way. 24. The Iron Maiden's Fake History. While not explicitly on every list, the concept of torture devices like the Iron Maiden, a coffin lined with spikes, is often cited as proof of medieval cruelty. In reality, the Iron Maiden is a fictional device. There are no medieval records of its use. The earliest examples were pieced together in the 19th century from spare parts to be displayed in museums as shock attractions. It was essentially a theme park prop designed to validate the narrative that the past was a barbaric nightmare compared to the civilized present. The Middle Ages were certainly brutal, but they weren't cartoonishly super villainous. The Iron Maiden is historical horror fiction, not a documented method of execution. 25. The Misquoted Emperor. Not tonight, Josephine. It is the ultimate rejection line, attributed to Napoleon, again, suggesting a man too busy with empire building for intimacy. The problem? There is no record of him ever saying it. In fact, their letters suggest Napoleon was utterly obsessed with Josephine, often pleading for her attention while she was the one playing it cool. Like "let them eat cake," which Marie Antoinette never said, this quote was attached to a famous figure to simplify their personality into a soundbite. Napoleon was many things: a tyrant, a genius, a narcissist, but he wasn't a sitcom husband dodging his wife. 26. Lady Liberty's Makeover. When the Statue of Liberty was gifted to the United States by France, she was a majestic, shimmering copper, essentially a giant new penny standing in the harbor. The Green Lady we know today is the result of decades of chemical weathering. The copper reacted with oxygen and the damp, salty air of New York to form a patina called verdigris. For years, Congress debated painting her or scraping the oxidation off to restore the shiny copper look. Eventually, they realized the patina actually protected the metal underneath from further corrosion. We have grown to love the green, but seeing her as originally intended, a blazing bronze giant reflecting the sun, would have been a sight to behold. 27. The American Fortune Cookie. There is nothing quite like finishing a meal of General Tso's chicken, also not authentically Chinese, and cracking open a fortune cookie to receive ancient Eastern wisdom. That wisdom, however, is about as Chinese as a hamburger. Fortune cookies were popularized in California in the early 20th century, likely by Japanese immigrants based on a Japanese cracker called Sugiura Senbei. During World War II, when Japanese Americans were tragically interned, Chinese businessmen took over the production of the cookies, and they became associated with Chinese American cuisine. In China, they are largely unknown and seen as a weird American eccentricity. Your lucky numbers are a product of American marketing, not ancient Confucian philosophy. 28. The Great Wall's Invisibility. The Great Wall of China is the only man-made object visible from space. It is a factoid that speaks to the grandeur of human achievement. It is also completely false. From low Earth orbit, the wall is barely visible and only under perfect conditions with a zoom lens. It is built from materials that match the surrounding terrain, making it blend in perfectly. From the moon? Forget about it. Seeing the Great Wall from the moon would be like seeing a human hair from 2 miles away. Conversely, you can see city lights, airports, and major highways from orbit. We built a wall to keep out Mongols, not to impress aliens. 29. The Cleaner Viking. Back to the Vikings. Popular media depicts them as filthy, mud-caked savages who probably smelled like a wet dog wrapped in leather. Archaeology tells a very different story. Excavations of Viking sites frequently turn up tweezers, razors, combs, and ear spoons made from animal bones. Historical accounts from the English assert that Vikings were actually too clean. They bathed once a week, a scandalous frequency compared to the average European Christian of the time, and changed their clothes regularly. Their hygiene was actually part of their appeal, leading to complaints that they were seducing English noblewomen with their fancy grooming habits. They were the metrosexuals of the Dark Ages. 30. The Sugar-High Hysteria. Every parent knows the dread of the sugar high. You give a child a cupcake, and 10 minutes later, they are bouncing off the walls, vibrating with demonic energy. It seems like cause and effect, but science disagrees. Double-blind studies have shown no physiological link between sugar intake and hyperactivity in children. The high is almost entirely psychological, contextual excitement. The kid is at a birthday party, surrounded by friends, gifts, and chaos. The sugar is just a passenger. In one study, parents were told their kids were given sugar, actually a placebo, and still reported them as being hyperactive. It is a classic case of confirmation bias. The cake isn't the problem, the party is. 31. The toilet's southern spin. The Coriolis effect is a very real force caused by the Earth's rotation, affecting weather patterns and ocean currents. The idea that it forces your toilet water to flush counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere is a delightful application of physics to plumbing. It is also wrong. A toilet bowl is simply too small for the Coriolis effect to overcome the design of the jets and the shape of the basin. The water spins the way the manufacturer aimed the nozzles. You can find toilets in Australia that flush the same way as toilets in New York. If you want to see the Coriolis effect, look at a hurricane, not a urinal. 32. The terminal velocity of a penny. It is the classic urban legend of the Empire State Building. Drop a penny from the observation deck, and it will accelerate until it becomes a bullet, drilling through the skull of an unlucky pedestrian below. It appeals to our fear of heights and hidden dangers, but aerodynamics saves the day. A penny is flat and light. As it falls, it tumbles, creating massive air resistance. It hits terminal velocity at about 30-50 miles per hour. It wouldn't embed itself in concrete or bone. It would just sting, maybe leave a welt, and really annoy the New Yorker you hit. Please do not test this. Test. New Yorkers are dangerous enough without being pelted with shrapnel. 33. The Sushi Semantics. Let's go get some raw fish, you say, heading to a sushi bar. But sushi does not mean raw fish. The word refers to the sour vinegared rice. Su means vinegar, shi is from meshi, rice. The fish is technically called sashimi or neta, topping. You can have sushi with cooked egg, avocado, cucumber, or even spam, musubi. The raw fish is merely a common passenger on the rice vehicle. By avoiding sushi because you don't eat raw meat, you are missing out on an entire culinary category based on rice preparation. It is a tragic linguistic misunderstanding that keeps you from deliciousness. 34. The botanical identity of bananas. Walking through a banana plantation, you might admire the towering trees. You would be wrong. The banana plant is technically a gigantic herb. The trunk isn't wood, it's tightly packed leaf stems. This makes the banana the world's largest herb, and the yellow thing you eat is technically a berry. Meanwhile, strawberries are not berries. Raspberries are not berries. But watermelons and pumpkins? Yes, berries. Botanists seem to have created these classifications specifically to make us feel stupid in the produce aisle. Enjoy your herb berry smoothie. 35. The 7-year gum digest. Don't swallow that gum. It stays in your stomach for 7 years. This lie was likely invented by street cleaners tired of scraping pink sludge off the sidewalk. While it is true that your body cannot enzymatically digest the synthetic rubber base of gum, it doesn't sit there building a nest. Your digestive system is an efficient conveyor belt. The gum moves through your intestines just like fiber or corn kernels and exits the building in a day or two. If gum actually stayed in your gut for 7 years, anyone who swallowed a piece in 2017 would still be carrying it. Your stomach is not a storage unit for confectionery mistakes. 36. The MSG Racism Rewrite. Bye. Monosodium glutamate, MSG, has been demonized for decades as a headache-inducing toxin, a phenomenon dubbed Chinese restaurant syndrome. People swear they feel sick after eating it. This hysteria started with a letter to a medical journal in 1968 and snowballed into a public panic, largely fueled by xenophobia against Asian cuisine. MSG is a naturally occurring compound found in tomatoes, Parmesan cheese, and mushrooms. It is simply the crystallized form of savory flavor, umami. Study after study has failed to find a link between MSG and the reported symptoms in controlled settings. Restricting MSG but eating Doritos packed with it is the height of culinary hypocrisy.
37. The Brain Cell Massacre. B.
University students often joke that a night of heavy drinking killed a few million brain cells. It is the price of a good time. But alcohol doesn't actually kill brain cells, neurons. It damages the dendrites, the wiry connections between the cells that carry information. This disrupts communication, which explains the slurred speech and the decision to text your ex at 2 a.m. The good news is that this damage is often reversible. The bad news is that heavy chronic drinking does cause permanent brain damage, Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, but not by literally popping cells like balloons. It's a subtle rot, not a massacre.
38. The Dirty 5-Second Rule.
We have all dropped a chip, looked around to ensure there were no witnesses, and invoked the 5-second rule. The logic is that bacteria are slow, lumbering creatures that need a few seconds to hop onto the food. Science is here to ruin your snack. Bacteria transfer is instantaneous. Moisture is the key factor. A piece of wet melon on a tiled floor will define contaminated in milliseconds. A dry cracker on a carpet might pick up less, but less is not zero. You aren't beating the clock, you are just eating floor germs and gambling on your immune system.
39. The Hydrating Coffee.
Coffee dehydrates you. This myth keeps guilt-ridden caffeine addicts chugging water chasers. Caffeine is indeed a mild diuretic, causing your kidneys to flush sodium and water. However, brewed coffee is almost entirely water. The liquid volume you consume in a cup of coffee outweighs the minor fluid loss caused by the caffeine. Regular coffee drinkers develop a tolerance to the diuretic effect anyway. You would have to consume a dangerous amount of caffeine pills to actually dehydrate yourself. Your morning latte counts toward your fluid intake. Rejoice and have another cup.
40. The height of Mount Everest.
Mount Everest is the highest mountain above sea level, reaching 29,032 feet into the death zone. But is it the tallest mountain? If you measure from base to summit, not sea level, Mauna Kea in Hawaii destroys Everest. Mauna Kea rises over 33,000 feet from the ocean floor. It just happens that half of it is underwater. If you measure by distance from the Earth's center, Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador wins because the Earth bulges at the equator. Chimborazo pushes further into space than Everest does. Everest is just the celebrity of mountains, famous, photographed, and crowded, while the others do the heavy lifting in obscurity.
41. The Dark Side of the Moon.
Pink Floyd gave us a great album and a terrible misconception. There is no permanent dark side of the moon. The moon is tidally locked to Earth, meaning we only ever see one face of it, but the sun shines on the other side just as often as the side we see. When we see a new moon, darkness, the backside is facing the sun directly, basking in glorious solar radiation. It isn't dark, it is just private. Calling it the far side is accurate. Calling it the dark side is poetic nonsense.
42. The Explosive Space Death.
Sci-fi movies love to show astronauts taking off their helmets in space and instantly exploding in a shower of gore, or freezing into an ice sculpture in seconds. It is visceral and terrifying. It is also wrong. In a vacuum, your blood is contained by the pressure of your skin and circulatory system, so it won't boil. You wouldn't freeze instantly either, because a vacuum is a great insulator, like a thermos, heat has nowhere to transfer to.
You would die, of course. You would pass out from lack of oxygen in about 15 seconds and die of asphyxiation soon after.
It would be a quiet, lonely, suffocating death, not a splatter movie special effect. Reality is often more boring, but equally grim.
43. The upward lightning.
Lightning strikes from the cloud to the ground. That is the visual we know. But lightning is a complex electrical circuit. While the step leader comes down from the cloud, the visible flash, the return stroke, actually travels from the ground up to the cloud. It moves so fast, 1/3 the speed of light, that your eye sees it as a downward bolt. Furthermore, ground-to-cloud lightning exists where the leader initiates from a tall building or tower and shoots upward. Nature isn't just raining fire on you, the earth is fighting back. 44. The solid glass myth. Tour guides in old European cathedrals often point to old window panes that are thicker at the bottom and claim, "Glass is a liquid. It has flowed downward over centuries." It is a romantic idea that solid objects are actually moving in slow motion. But glass is an amorphous solid. It does not flow at room temperature. The thickness is a result of primitive manufacturing methods, specifically the crown glass process, where glass was spun into a disc. The edges were thicker. Glaziers simply installed the heavy side at the bottom for stability. If glass flowed, ancient Roman vases would be puddles by now. The window isn't melting. The technology just improved. 45. The black hole vacuum cleaner. Black holes are portrayed as cosmic vacuum cleaners, aggressively sucking everything in the galaxy into their maw. If the sun were replaced by a black hole of the exact same mass today, Earth wouldn't get sucked in. We would continue to orbit it exactly as we do now, though we would freeze to death very quickly. Black holes have gravity just like any other object. They are dangerous only if you cross the event horizon, the point of no return. As long as you keep your distance, a black hole is just a heavy, dark anchor in space, not a hungry monster hunting for planets. 46. The Extraterrestrial Bling. Gold is rare. We value it for its scarcity. But the truth of its origin makes it even more precious. Gold cannot be created by the geological processes of Earth. All the gold in your jewelry ring was forged in the hearts of dying stars, supernovae, or the collision of neutron stars billions of years ago. When the Earth was molten, its original gold sank to the core. The accessible gold we mine today arrived later, carried by asteroid bombardments that pimped out the Earth's crust. Your wedding ring is literally space debris. 47. The Gradual Apocalypse. We picture the extinction of the dinosaurs as a singular cinematic afternoon. An asteroid hits, boom, everyone dies. The credits roll. In reality, the KPG extinction event was a chaotic unraveling that took thousands of years to settle. Many species were already in decline due to volcanic activity, the Deccan traps, changing the climate. The asteroid was just the coup de grace. And not everything died at once. Ecosystems collapsed slowly, starvation set in, and the sun was blocked for months. It wasn't a quick gunshot, it was a slow, choking winter. 48. The myth of pure water. Water conducts electricity. That's why you don't use a toaster in the bathtub. This is true for bath water, but untrue for pure water. Chemically pure H2O is an electrical insulator. It creates no path for the current. The reason water kills you is because of the impurities, salts, minerals like calcium and magnesium, and dirt that are dissolved in it. These ions carry the charge. Your tap water is an electrolyte soup. If you filled a tub with distilled, deionized water, you might be safe dropping a toaster in it. But considering the dirt on your skin would instantly recontaminate the water, maybe don't try it for YouTube.
49. The 10% brain scan.
The most flattering insult to humanity is the idea that we only use 10% of our brains. Imagine if we unlocked the rest, we say, hoping for superpowers. This myth persists because we want to believe we have untapped potential. In reality, you use 100% of your brain. fMRI scans show activity across the entire organ, even when you are sleeping. The brain is an energy hog, consuming 20% of the body's calories despite being only 2% of its weight. Evolution is efficient. It wouldn't maintain a massive calorie-burning organ if 90% of it were dead weight. You are already at max capacity. This is it. This is as smart as you get.
50. The sinking toilet seat. It is the subject of germophobic nightmares, the public toilet seat. We hover, we line it with paper, we hold our breath. But microbiologically speaking, the toilet seat is surprisingly clean.
It is too dry and cool for bacteria to thrive.
The real villains in your house? The kitchen sponge, the cutting board, and your smartphone screen. Your kitchen sponge typically hosts 200,000 times more bacteria than your toilet seat.
You are essentially wiping your dishes with a petri dish of E. coli, then worrying about your butt touching dry plastic.
The verdict.
In the grand theater of human folly, these facts serve as a reminder that we are creatures of narrative, not truth.
We prefer a good story, a Viking with horns, a suicidal lemming, a mysterious tongue map, over the messy, boring, or complex reality. We live in a world painted by misconceptions, and stripping them away leaves us feeling a little exposed. But at least now, when you shave your legs, drink your coffee, or stare at the moon, you'll know exactly what's really happening. Or at least you'll know slightly more than the person next to you.
And isn't that what truly matters?